Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a brand new live edition of Dodgers Territory. I am Alanna Rizzo. That is Clint Pasillas. We are your hosts for the next half an hour. Thanks for joining us on an earlier time today. And we have a special guest right off the bat, if you will. Mike DiGiovanna does such a tremendous job covering not only the Dodgers, but the Angels and the Chargers as well for LA Times. And DG, kind enough to join us now from Surprise, Arizona. Mike, thanks for taking the time to be with us. Let's get right to it. You've been around Dodgers camp now for quite a few days, and really what we wanted to talk about off the bat was the comeback, if you will, from Dustin May. What a tremendous sight to see. Obviously the emotion there on that strikeout. It's been a long time since he's been able to do it at the big league level. What did you notice?
Well, first of all, the guy hasn't pitched in a competitive environment in 21 months, and his fastball's hitting 94, 95 right out of the chute. Now that's a little lower than his usual 97, 98 velo, but it's his first start of the spring. He hasn't pitched in over a year and a half. He'll work into that velocity. His stuff is nasty, but I think the biggest thing I noticed is just his demeanor, his attitude. I mean, he had a life-threatening situation last summer, and Dustin hasn't been around a long time. I've gotten to know him a little over the years, but you could really hear the gratitude in his voice yesterday after that game, just how happy he is to be out on a major league mound again, competing, pitching for the Dodgers. He's really fired up, and I think he's just, he's one of those, you see it sometimes with these younger players, something happens and they realize that, what they're striving for their whole life might be taken away in a blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. And so he's sort of a buoyant, I guess is maybe the word I'd use. He's really fired up. And I mean, the crazy thing is you think about how good he was a few years ago, the potential for how good he can be, and he's battling for like a fifth rotation spot on this team. It's kind of mind-boggling to have that kind of talent potentially at the back of your rotation.
Yeah, the talent level for this team is pretty insane this spring training. We've talked about that a lot so far on the show this year. Looking forward to seeing how this works out. We've seen all of the guys fighting for that final spot. Bobby Miller, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin. Of course, Bobby Miller is the one. Things got scary there for him, taking that comebacker off of the dome. Thankfully, it seems to be okay. But what's the latest you can tell us about Bobby Miller?
Yeah, he was very thankfully as a hardhead, as he said in his own words. He's going to resume throwing today. It's going to be a slower spring from him. We talked to him the other day, and he was still feeling a lot of dizziness, having trouble sleeping. If you've ever had a concussion, I did when I was young. It's really brutal. So he's going through that process. I don't think he was really going to be in that mix for the rotation right out of the chute for the when the regular season starts. I think this kind of assures that he's been set back enough where he's probably not going to be a factor. They want to take it slow with him. Smart way to play it. Make sure he's okay. And I think he'll probably be better served at this point, starting out in AAA and working on his stuff and building his confidence. And if you been around these Dodgers long, they go through pitching, man. They just seem to have a fair amount of injury. So he's going to be, summoned and at some point this year, and he's going to need to be ready to perform at a better level than he did last season.
Mike, going back to Dustin May for just a second, in your estimation, does he get the fifth spot? Will he be built up enough to do that? Or with the arms that are there in camp right now, do you anticipate him starting in the bullpen, or do you anticipate him starting in AAA or continuing to work up in AAA?
Yeah. We had a long chat with Mark Pryor yesterday, and they're not ruling out anything at this point. His stuff, I think, personally, would really translate to a bullpen role, but they don't want to.
Yes, sir.
That's a fallback option. They don't want to go there this soon. They're going to build up all these guys as starters. And then, it's a weird schedule again. They go to Japan for 2 games. They come back. They won't start the regular season for, I think it's another week or so. So, they're not going to put labels on anything. They're not going to put limits on anyone. He's in his mind, it's a regular spring training. So I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be built up to a point where he's ready to be a starter when things break. And injuries happen all throughout the year. They happen in spring training. They happen in July, August. So, they'll make those, as Dave Roberts likes to say, these are champagne problems. And if they have to make some tough decisions at the end of March, so be it. Most organizations would love to have to choose between Tony Gonsolin, who was 16-1 and an All-Star 2 years ago, and Dustin May, who, while he hasn't fulfilled his potential and put together that one season, we've seen glimpses of it. And and then you have some of the kids, the Landon Knacks, the Bobby Millers, some of these other depth pieces. It's a really good problem to have.
Yeah, and on the position player side of things too. I mean, you bring back veterans like you have Kike Hernandez still around. Of course, Chris Taylor still exists for the Dodgers and expecting big things this year. But they bring in another kid, Hyeseong Kim, who's playing a big role for this team, trying to move around, maybe become the super utility guy of the future. Also looks pretty dang good as a second baseman. Of course, you wrote a column yesterday, I believe it was, looking at Hyeseong Kim, what the Dodgers are saying. He could be Gold Glove winner, a platinum winner at second base. What can you tell us about Kim and his progression and how the Dodgers are feeling about him a few games into the camp?
Yeah, just go Google some highlights of Kim from the KBO. I mean, and you talk to the players in the Dodgers camp, Miguel Rojas, some of the coaches. It's really clear that his best position is second base, and that's sort of the baseline they're working with now. Alanna knows with their time following the Dodgers, V does not just stand for victory; it stands for versatility, and they value that asset in a player as much, if not more, than any organization I've been around in 30 years. And he's left-handed. You have Pages and James Outman in the outfield. You could conceivably start both those guys in AAA if Kim can play the outfield. They have plenty of shortstops, but if he can play shortstop, that adds to the depth. They're going to explore everything they can as far as him being a utility player, but I could very easily see this, becoming a situation where he's primarily a second baseman, which they need. Probably more of a platoon second baseman because you're going to want to have, Kike in the lineup against lefties. You can move Tommy Edman over there, depending on if Pages is on the team, and you against a lefty put Pages in center and Edman, the switch hitter, at second. The other thing they had outside of versatility, they love their platoon splits too, and they're going to have a lot of options in a lot of different areas. And Miguel Rojas, another right-handed hitter, you're going to want to get him in the lineup against some lefties too. So once again, good problem to have if everybody stays healthy. But I think almost a bigger determinant for Kim is going to be how he hits, how he adjusts to the better, higher velocity, the nastier breaking pitches. It's way too early to make a determination just from some of the early at bats I've seen. He is a contact hitter. It's just hard to tell this early how his offensive skills are going to translate. The one tool he does seem to have in great supply is speed, and that's always going to help him. So that to me will probably determine how much he plays, as opposed to whether he can play short or third or center field.
I tell you, the speed will certainly help him in the outfield if that's where he is. But I have a two-part question for you, DG. At what point are there too many super utility players? And if you're going to have the opportunity to have perhaps a Gold Glover, Platinum Glover at second base, why not just leave him there?
I agree with you, honestly. They pay me a lot of money to make those big decisions for them. I wish. Well, the other point you bring up is there's as much depth as they have, there's some redundancy. Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez are right-handed utility players. Tommy Edmonds is a switch hitting utility player. I mean, you don't need 4 utility players on your team. The way the roster's configured, I think because Ohtani is not a pitcher, not considered a pitcher, toward 13, knowing the Dodgers, once again, they're probably going to go, conservative and still carry 13 pitchers plus Shohei. You're only going to have room for 1, maybe 2, bench players who play the field. Chris Taylor's had some interesting he's been an interesting player for this team. He's done some amazingly great things, some clutch hits, and he's gone through some of the longest, most brutal slumps I've ever seen. You're going to have to make a decision. Is it going to be him or Kike on your roster? Is it going to be, obviously Tommy Edmonds on the roster? And, one option they have is they're not really super comfortable or confident in Kim offensively. They could start him out at AAA and 2, and that way you can retain some of your depth at least before you have to start DFAing guys to get him on the roster. So it's Andrew Friedman. He earns his keep. He earns his pay, man. That's a tough job.
This whole front office, they're bringing in more dudes that they probably there's an excess of utility front office dudes with Farhan Zaidi rejoining the team as well.
They're even loading up in the front office. It's not fair.
Talent for days for this organization, including one name they brought in. Everybody talking about this kid in the offseason, Roki Sasaki. I know you spoke with Mark Pryor yesterday before the game about they kind of stashed Roki away in the pitching lab they have there at Camelback Ranch, and we're maybe getting some eyes on him this week, but not necessarily on the big field. What can you tell us about Roki and the pitching lab and kind of how this team is viewing Sasaki here in his first spring training?
Well, believe it or not, they don't let members of the media into the pitching lab, so I can't tell you much about that. But I'd like them to, put all those sensors on me and see what I'm like when I'm writing on deadline. Geez, the kids, we've seen him physically. He's just long and lean. He's got that perfect pitcher's body. His mechanics seem really smooth. And I don't know. Once again, the embarrassment of riches from a pitching standpoint is something to behold. He's going to pitch, as of now, he's going to pitch one of those games in Japan. So they don't seem to want to put any limitations on him to start the season. Shohei's not going to be ready. They're going to slow play a few guys like they always do. And because of days off in April, they're only going to need a 5-man rotation for a while. And then I think their hope is that when Shohei's ready to return to the mound, they'll go to the 6-man. So, Roki's thing, his velo dipped a little last year. I'm sure that's something the Dodgers are digging in on, whether it was a mechanical thing, an injury thing, or whatever. But his splitter, it's, you talk to the catchers in camp, and these guys have seen it all, Austin Barnes, Will Smith, and they're, raving about his split finger. There's something about it. It reacts a little differently. I don't know exactly. Some people have compared it to Hideo Nomo's, and if you remember that, I think a lot of Hideo's success came from that crazy tornado windup and deception. But if you remember, his splitter would break to the right sometimes. Sometimes it would stay straight and sink, and there were times where it was almost like a little knuckleball. It's almost like 3 different pitches if you can make it do those, if it has those kinds of characteristics. So, and I think for him, developing a third pitch, the slider is going to be that for him, is going to be important when it comes to success in the major leagues long term.
Yeah, perhaps Hideo Nomo 2.0, another Japanese-born player that people absolutely love. Anything that he does, especially when he can't parallel park, apparently, is Shohei Otani. And you have covered him at length, DG. Obviously, in his time with the Angels, it seems like it's a different Shohei, different personality, more approachable, just a different guy, very comfortable, doesn't have to be the man considering that roster. What have you noticed in terms of his development and just overall change from one team to the other?
Well, from a development standpoint, I just think what he did last year on the field wasn't anything we hadn't seen in Anaheim. It was just to another level. A lot of that was because let's be honest, a lot of his numbers came because he was hitting in a tremendous lineup, at least until he hit leadoff. A lot of guys in front of him, a lot of RBI opportunities. The fact that he wasn't pitching allowed him to be more aggressive on the bases, hence 59 stolen bases. I just think being on a winning team has everything to do with Shohei, and let's face it, it had to be a huge relief for him to clear that whole Ipe the whole controversy with his interpreter and the gambling scandal before the season started. That was huge for him. He's never been a guy that we're just going to go up to his locker and shoot the breeze with him. But I visited Tokyo for a couple of days in January, and I ran into, advertisements and pictures of Shohei like all the time. So I just went up to him the other day and showed him a picture of me just leaning against the big Shohei kind of thing. And I said, man, I went to Tokyo and I couldn't get rid of you. And he laughed. Little things like that. He's just, he is very much more comfortable. I think having Yamamoto here helped last year, and now he has 2 Japanese teammates, and winning a World Series. I mean, there's no replacement. There's no way to top that. But he does seem more comfortable. I think the Dodgers have done a really good job of making him feel more comfortable. You see some of the stunts he's already pulled with Dave Roberts and the toy cars. And he's just, you could tell he's just having a lot of fun. And meanwhile, working his tail off. I mean, it's still, you can't forget what this guy is doing. I mean, I was in the press box for one of the playoff games last year, and Bill Plaschke was sitting next to me, and you don't want to add up the number of years both of us have been working and covering playing baseball. But it's a lot. And I turned to him, I said, Plash, I don't know how many more years we got left doing this, but we're going to be able to go out of this business saying we covered the greatest player in baseball history. At this point, I don't know how you argue that. Plaschke might have covered Babe Ruth. I did not. But, Babe was a great two-way player for 2 years, and then he pretty much gave it up. I mean, there's no other comp for Shohei. Maybe there will be in the future, but in my lifetime, he's the best player I've ever seen.
Yeah, you've seen a lot, DG. We appreciate your time. Safe drive back to California. I know that you're in Arizona right now. We appreciate you taking a few minutes before you hit the road, and we'll see you soon at a park.
All right. Hope to see you soon, Alanna. Take care.
All right. Take care. Mike DiGiovanna with the LA Times. We appreciate him very much. Clint and I are back in a moment. First, a word from our friends at Foul Territory on Green Chef.
Is at you fast. Make life easier and healthier with Green Chef. Stay on track, even on your busiest days, with options like salads, ready in 5 minutes or less, and ready to blend smoothies.
You'll get pre-made sauces, pre-portioned ingredients to enjoy restaurant-quality meals for the #1 meal kit for eating well.
If you're like, wait, what about HelloFresh? Green Chef is owned by HelloFresh with a lovely array of meal plans to choose from. We love them both dearly. I switch between brands, and now our listeners can enjoy both brands at a discount.
Scott, I made the shrimp rice dish with corn and roasted cashews last night. It was fire. It came with a high-quality, organic, fresh produce that I love, so my whole family can eat clean.
Thrive all year with clean, easy meals from Green Chef. Go to greenchef.com/territory-free and use code territory-free to get started with free salads for 2 months, plus 50% off your first box. That's greenchef.com/territory-free and use that code territory-free.
Appreciate Green Chef being a part of the show, and I agree with them. It is owned by
the folks at HelloFresh, right?
HelloFresh, and it is fire. It is so good, all the stuff that they have in their boxes. All right, time now for Last Licks. Louis is in need of an adopter. This little guy was found living, you guys, under a car, completely matted, filthy, just awful. And he is in a foster home now. Unfortunately, he was ravaged by fleas when he was left abandoned on the streets, but he is on medication. He's getting the appropriate treatment. He's 18 months old. He is so lovable, great with other dogs, great with all people. We are in need of an adopter for him. He will be available in 5 to 6 weeks after his skin is healed and he is neutered. And we could really use some help with the vet care in terms of the costs of that. So if you'd like to learn more about Louis or help us with his vet cost, please do so. Guidry'sGuardian.org. Right now, he is being fostered in La Habra, California, but we will adopt him out to anyone in the California area as long as they pass a home and yard check and all of those things. So appreciate you guys for letting us talk about pups in need here on Dodgers territory. Clint, what is coming up on All Dodgers with Clint Pasillas?
Later on tonight, we'll be live 6 o'clock Pacific time. That is p.m. Pacific time. But we'll be talking about the latest with your Dodgers. I got a lot more I want to say on the Dustin May situation, so I'll be talking about that because I do think the Dodgers may have tipped their hand when it comes to him opening the season either on the IL or an extended spring training. So I'll dive into that more later. Guys, I'll tell you, just subscribe to the channel to know when I'm going live every time. We'll have content all week. When things happen, I will be live. So like, share, subscribe, tell your grandma, tell the mailman, all that kind of stuff. It really helps out the channel there and here.
Yes, don't forget to like and subscribe to us as well. We're almost to 10,000 subscribers. We appreciate you guys very much. Before we say goodbye, though, I want to let everybody know that Amelia May, the wife of Dustin May, is going to be on our show on Thursday talking all things about the comeback route for her husband and how emotional it's been for him and the scary situation with the esophagus almost dying because of salad. We'll get a little bit deeper into that. And also, before we let you go, we wanted to give you a thought for the road about how Americans and those from Japan announce things very differently. Roki Sasaki, by the way, is married. And this is how he announced it. And it's adorable. I mean, Americans talk about everything that they do from inception to conception. Japanese folks, a little different.
A little bit different. Yeah. We have, I don't have the clip here. I don't know if I was given it. That's my bad. It's a new time.
Clint.
It was a new time, so, things happen. Things are a little bit different when we're multiple hours earlier, but just 2 hats. Roki posting a picture with 2 hats, and that's his way of saying there's a Mrs. Roki in the picture.
There's a Mrs. Sasaki, Clint.
I like saying, Mrs.
Roki.
Yeah, let's go with the name.
I mean, Shohei did it quietly, and then they announced that they were having a baby pretty quietly. I think the baby's already here, which is insane.
I love what Doc said, too. He's like, I didn't even know he had a girlfriend, but like a gift is in the mail. No, a gift is not in the mail yet because you just barely found out when a reporter told you. So anyway, I think that was pretty
very,
funny.
very different cultures. It's adorable. It's adorable. It's adorable. All right. So everybody, thanks for watching. We always appreciate you guys being here, listening, watching, subscribing, all of the things. Clint and I will be back again 10 a.m. Pacific on Thursday, a brand new show. Thanks for being with us. We will see you next time. Go Dodgers.
Bye.